What's going on, guys? The Movie Idiot here. Welcome to my spoiler review of the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Saw this movie yesterday, and I gotta say, I liked it. I enjoyed the show, I enjoyed the movie, I enjoyed the premise of the movie. I think that's what I like the most about it, actually, the premise of the movie. But I definitely had some issues with it, and I'm going to go into all of this pretty in depth here. Again, spoiler review. So I will be talking in depth about this movie. So, again, spoiler review. So make sure, if you haven't seen this movie yet, get out right now. Let it go. All right, gonna go into it. So, this movie starts. It's kind of in a small town. Actually, in a small town, kind of setting, rural-ish. I think it's in 1969. There's a big premise of the movie is the time frame it's in. So they talk a lot about like Vietnam and Nixon and that kind of thing. I'm sorry. I'm just looking up something really quick here. Very professional, I know. But I guess the whole point with the premise is they do a great job of setting the scene of the time frame of this movie. Sorry, hold on one second here. So they do a great job of setting the scene of the time frame of this movie. So you get a great idea of like, where you're at. That's done so well. I give the writers and directors credit on how they like really put you in that world of, the Vietnam years and Nixon and whatnot. So, it basically starts in a small town, and your main character is a girl named Stella Nichols, played by Zoe Margaret Coletti. Stella seems to be kind of like an introvert. She only has a couple of friends. Her two friends are Augie Hillbrandt and what's the other guy's name? Tommy. No, not Tommy Miller. Sorry. It was Augie and Chuck. Augie and Chuck are her two best friends, right? So, and Augie and Chuck are played by Gabriel Rush and Austin Zajur. Anyway, so her and her couple of friends or whatever are out trick-or-treating. They go out trick-or-treating, and Chuck wants to get back at like this neighborhood bully guy, and so he collects shit from his toilets. Like, literally, his sister even walks in. His sister's name is Ruth, and she even walks in and sees him collecting shit from the toilet, and he puts it in a bag or whatever. And so they're standing there waiting or they're walking down the street, and they see the bully guy's car pull up. And the bully guy, his name is Tommy Milner, and he's played by Austin Abrams. I didn't actually like his character that much. I thought the actor didn't do the greatest job, in my opinion, on bringing that particular character to life. I felt like it could have been done a lot better. So, but anyway, I digress. So, they're walking down the street. It's Halloween. They have what looks like a candy bag that they're holding out like this for this car to then pick up as they drive by. So apparently they've done this multiple Halloweens. So, of course, the car goes by. They grab the candy bag, pull it into the car. It's a bag of shit. So they stop, and the three main characters start chucking eggs and stuff at the car, and they piss this guy off, and this guy chases them into a outdoor movie theater, a drive-in theater. And so they end up going into this other guy's car, and that guy, his name is Ramon Morales, played by Michael Garza. I thought he did a great job in this movie. Him and the main character, Stella, Ramon and Stella had the best chemistry on screen by far. And they end up being the romantic interests in this movie too. So, very well done. So anyway, they end up getting in this guy's car, and then the bullies end up finding him, and they're like, harassing Ramon and everything, and then the owner of the theater ends up walking up, and so the guy leaves, right? So the bully leaves, Tommy Milner. Well, Tommy Milner ends up going home, and those kids end up going to a haunted house. Stella says to Ramon, she's like, "Have you ever seen a haunted house?" So they go to this haunted house in town. The haunted house in town is this old family. It's kind of like a founding family of the town, kind of like the Waynes were to Gotham City, kind of that kind of thing. So they go to this thing, and there's a whole urban legend about a girl who was locked in a basement in this town. So, per the urban legend, basically her family locked her in this basement, and she would tell stories to kids through the walls of the house, because kids would walk up and hear her through the walls, and she'd tell them stories. And the way it went, it says, hold on here, let me see if I can find, because the girl's name is Sarah, I believe. Now, they never show the girl, like, in her childhood. They just explain all of this, but later on they have, like, a ghost version of the girl. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they don't show it here in the cast credits. But anyway, the girl's name is Sarah. And, you say Sarah Barons or Borals or something like that. That was her full name. Tell me a story. And she'd tell a story. Well, all of a sudden, these kids started dying. Now, this is way back. This is when Sarah was still alive. But she was locked in this basement, and kids were dying in the neighborhood, and she got blamed. Come to find out, she ended up getting put in a nut house, but that's a whole other thing. So they're in this haunted house. Fast forward back to 1969. They're in the haunted house, and Stella runs. They find this room. They find this room in the haunted house, and Stella runs across the book, and it's Sarah's storybook. So she starts, looking in the book or whatever. She takes the book home. Everybody goes home. There's a little bit of a creepy scene with Charlie in another room where he's messing around with his other friend. And he ends up in like a wardrobe, and then he sees a ghost, and he freaks out a little bit. And they did get locked in the room by the Tommy guy. I totally forgot about that part, sorry. So the Tommy guy ends up locking him in the room, and Sarah, the ghost, lets them out. Basically what happens is Stella says, "Sarah, tell me a story," and it lets the ghost out, and the ghost lets them out of the room. Okay, so they all go home. Fast forward to Tommy Milner, and he goes home, and his mom's yelling at him because he's drunk and he didn't do something, so he had to go deliver some eggs or something because they live on a farm. And there's a scarecrow on the farm that he hates. Well, the scarecrow ends up chasing after him and then stabs him through with a pitchfork, and Tommy, ends up becoming the scarecrow. It's kind of like, it reminded me of Goosebumps a little bit. Like, it had a very much of a Goosebumps vibe. But anyway, so Tommy becomes a scarecrow, and that's the first victim of these new kids, right? So more and more kids, and it's all the kids that were in the house, start disappearing. So Tommy became the scarecrow. What's the other guy again? Augie, he ended up getting dragged basically into a wall and disappearing by a ghost after, of course, he's eating some stew and he ate the ghost toe. There's a whole thing about, where's my toe? But that's actually a pretty good scene. But so he got dragged into the wall. And then Ruth, her turn came because Ruth was there too. And Ruth is Charlie's sister, who was actually with Tommy earlier in the movie as like a date or whatever, and Tommy ended up pushing her in the room with the other kids and locking the door. Anyway, Ruth she got bit by a spider that night when she was in the house, and she ends up getting this giant zit that ends up popping, and all these spiders come out. Well, here's where the story gets interesting. So as all of these atrocities happen, so it's Tommy becoming the scarecrow, and Augie getting dragged into the wall, and Ruth with the pimple, this stuff gets written into the book, and they're watching it getting written in real time in blood. Ooh. But it gets written into the book in real time. So they actually, by the time, so since Tommy's the first one to go, they didn't get to him in time. But the second one, Augie, they tried to get to him in time and missed. But Ruth they got there and they saved her. They actually got the spiders off her. Now her face is all deformed because this thing, giant zit, popped on her face. But they got to her and they saved her. So she was saved. And that's kind of a big thing because of all the stories, she's the only one that got saved. And you'd think that would have been a bigger deal. It ended up not. And it was kind of weird. I don't know why. But anyway. So they save her, but they end up so they start trying to find out more about Sarah and why she's doing all this stuff. And they end up finding out that her family, who, you know, again, one of the founders of this town, owned a mill, or like a paper mill, I think it was. And the mill was poisoning the water supply. And that's why actually all the kids were dying back then. It wasn't because Sarah was telling them stories, but it's because there was mercury in the water and they were dying. And Sarah was trying to tell people, and so her family locked her in the basement so she couldn't tell anybody, and then eventually put her in an insane asylum so she couldn't tell anybody. And then they tried to get her to admit that she killed the kids by telling these stories, which is just ridiculous, but okay. So all of this stuff kind of goes on, right? So Charlie ends up disappearing when they're in the mental institute, trying to find out, like, you know, what happened there. He ends up getting swallowed up by a ghost. So by the last act of the film, they all end up in the haunted house. Excuse me. They all end up in a haunted house, and you know, obviously they end up confronting Sarah, and Stella ends up confronting Sarah, literally in person. She ends up in the room and sees Sarah there, ends up confronting her, and basically says, "Look, you need to stop this. What happened to you was a tragedy. It was terrible, but and oh yeah." By the way, Sarah, they found out, ended up killing her whole family. So after she had died, she ended up killing her whole family via the stories. So, you know, plot thing. So, anyway, she ended up killing her whole family the same way. And what Stella explains to her is, look, I understand that, because what they did to you is awful, and I understand you exacting your revenge, but this rage now is killing and making innocent people disappear, and that has to stop. And so this whole thing, right, and all that was good. Even that scene was good, but then basically Sarah just is like, okay, and disappears, except for none of the people came back. Like, none of them. Augie doesn't come back. Charlie doesn't come back. They didn't. Not even, you know, Scarecrow, Timmy or whatever. He doesn't come back. None of them come back. So they're all gone forever. And they even talk about that at the end of the film. The Ruth, the girl with the pimple, Stella, and Stella's dad they pack up the car, and you see them driving away, and they even say, "Look, we're going to try and figure out a way to get our friends back." It's like they set it up for a sequel, but it really kind of sucked as an ending. Like, I don't know. That's my opinion. The movie as a whole was entertaining and really held my attention. It was good, fun, very well done. Great chemistry between most of the characters. I didn't like the bully kid so much, but the rest of them I thought were really good, really well done. The sheriff's a jerk. Definitely some racial tension, some political, you know, underlying themes. But that was the time frame. 1969 was a very hotbed, you know, time. So, you know, it made sense and it worked with the movie. So all in all, the movie was good. I'll give it a thumbs up in the sense that it was entertaining and held my interest. But the ending was bad. I didn't like it at all. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Let me know what you guys thought with some comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then also if you want to hit me up, you can hit me up at MovieIdiot1 on Twitter, or at MovieIdiot1 on Twitter, or themovieidiot@gmail.com. You can email me as well, and I will catch you all later.